Where are we?
We're at Piccadilly Circus on our first day of our honeymoon in London.
Very nice.
Double-decker bus, 45.
We're gonna follow through with our trusted guide. And today is Piccadilly at St. James, honeymoon day 1. We got a fun plane ride.
Somebody was
You can cut it.
Cut it? How do you cut it? I forgot how you cut it.
Recording it.
What was this about? We got lost, so now we're back. Where we're supposed to be, and now we're gonna try to do the walk, the book.
The book. Alright. So where are we at exactly?
Piccadilly by Eros. We got it.
Hey, you gotta drive the car like this. Very nice. Let's shoot that. It's not Blair Witch, man. I got it. I know, I'm coming. Alright, give me the breakdown where we are.
We stumbled across here.
Stumbled across.
While trying to follow the two cable.
Look at that thing. Look at those lions. Feel the old zoo. Oh, we gotta sit on top of the lion.
I know, it's really neat. Go, Big Bear, go.
There it is.
Right there. Not a big thing.
These birds on the place. Look at this place.
Yeah, this is fun. Trafalgar Square. Yeah.
Okay, we're now by Westminster, and Big Ben is behind us. We're gonna go take a look at it tomorrow better.
Yep. There it is.
What did you call it? The Eye of England? Or the
This is the Eye of London, I think.
London is right behind us. So we're gonna try and ride that. That's like a 45-minute ride.
Alright. Anything else?
Big guy.
Yeah, big cat.
This is the Thames River. Beautiful. Kind of dirty, but. We're really surprised at how big the place Big Ben is attached to. I don't know what it's called. Wait, what is that place called?
Westminster Westminster Abbey.
The Abbey.
Kinda. Let me see if it works.
It caught your chest, I think. Oh, now it's recording. Where are we?
The London Eye. We're gonna go upstairs and check it out.
We're on the London Eye right now. You can see all of London, and we actually caught it at a good time because it's almost sunset. It's really nice.
Hey, Shane! Go. Where are we?
Come
on.
I didn't know it was rolling. We're in Westminster. We went to Westminster Abbey earlier today, which we think that's the back side of it.
Correct.
Sorry, camera. We forgot you earlier.
It happens.
And we tried to get into Parliament over there, but they're closed today. So Monday between 2 to 10,
Uh-huh.
we're gonna come back.
All right, let's go.
Big Ben is a cut here. Well, you can't really see it, but it's attached. Oh, look at the flying buttresses.
What?
Yeah, the flying buttresses. I never seen them.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
All right, we're in London. Let's get a good backdrop. This is Westminster. Next, we're gonna do a river tour, but first, we're gonna check out the National Gallery. So one more sweeping shot.
Can you grab the stuff? Yeah. Yeah, Big Bear's on tripod.
Tripod.
Yeah. That appears to be a fire engine. Oh, Chuck's gonna love that shot, huh?
It appears to be a fire engine, babe. Come on.
You know what? I was looking at this detail of it all. It's just amazing. Okay, let's go.
Okay. You can cut it. Let's
No, why? Let's just go. Keep on going. Go, go, go.
go.
It's beautiful. That's the big guy. Boop, boop, boop. Oh,
Wow.
bless you. Wow. Although we missed part of the...
It's okay.
Right over here, Dad.
Hey, that was a 3 o'clock bell ringing. Big Ben. Big Ben.
Wow, look at the amazing detail on that.
This is a sweeping shot.
Okay, Big Bear and the sweeping shots. Okay, got it. I just did a little zoom magic. Oh,
Here I
who's
am.
that?
Parliament was closed today, but we'll come back on Monday and go from there.
Okay, let's go.
All right, let's go.
We wrote that yesterday, yeah? Now we're gonna go get tickets.
Yeah, buy two.
the big guy. And me. What are you doing? Caught.
No, you just have to see if this thing works.
Just took a picture in front of there. Where is this exactly?
What do you mean?
Where are we?
This is Victoria Gardens.
Or some kind of gardens. It's beautiful though.
Let me take one, make sure it works.
Look at this.
Hey, hold on. There we go. Alright. So anyway, we're on the way to the... Gotta flip that. We just bought tickets for the river cruise, and our next spot is going to be the National Gallery, Trafalgar Square. We have a good day so far.
So where did this end up being? It was Victoria Gardens, yeah?
That's right, it was the Victoria and Beckley Gardens.
We just took a picture in front of that. And the garden behind us. It's a statue. There's this nice little building. Can I do a video camera too?
Yep. Alright. Narrate away. Oh, there you go. No, I have to make sure I don't drop the Nikon camera.
We're good.
Where are you going? The National Gallery, come on.
Oh, National Gallery or museum, yeah? We have to make it before our river cruise.
Okay.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
We're walking, but I had to catch this because it looks so awesome. Just the leaves and the... Oh.
Let's get
Oh,
about a
crap.
double decker.
Oh.
Let's go.
We're never gonna get there on time.
Ever.
Close to the museum, yeah, Bruce?
Yeah, I went to the museum and back it up.
We took pictures here yesterday.
Yeah, Trafalgar, and I climbed that very lion right
Yeah,
there.
that lion right there. Big guy was on it.
You're gonna climb up like a little kid?
Okay, here we go. That's the museum.
Yeah.
Okay. Don't
you gonna-
stand too close to that with your camera. It's gonna get wet.
Right. Aren't you gonna narrate a little bit?
Huh?
Aren't you gonna narrate?
Oh, I thought you said, aren't you married already yet? I guess, have to be.
Very cute.
Let's go.
Okay, babe.
Upstairs.
Okay. Let's cut it because I see the battery menu bars.
Really? Oh, that sucks.
Don't worry about it.
The current Archbishop is Rowan Williams, and we can tell that he's not in residence there today because the flag's not flying right now. Whenever he is there, a blue flag flies from that white flagpole. But the most famous Archbishop to live there was possibly Thomas of Becket. He's the one who was martyred. So he was made into a saint, and he had a hospital named after him. And this hospital is just on our right now. Ahead of us, we have, of course, St Thomas's Hospital. The original wards of St Thomas's Hospital are these red and white buildings here. These three identical buildings, partially designed by Florence Nightingale, the famous Lady of the Lamp who had her Nightingale Nurses School here. And in fact, the school is still there today. And if you train at that hospital as a nurse, you're called a Nightingale nurse still now. And you get a special badge for that as well. It was in this very hospital where Florence Nightingale helped to make nursing what it is today. Looking ahead of us now, you can see we've got a great view of the London Eye. At 135 metres high, when it was first built, this was the largest observation wheel in the world. But it has been beaten now by one in Singapore, called the Singapore Flyer, which is slightly bigger. But the London Eye still remains the original. And it was conceived and designed by a husband and wife architect team called David Marks and Julie Barfield. It cost £75 million to build. It was mainly paid for by British Airways. They were the original chief sponsors, but they no longer sponsor the Eye. There are 32 high-tech, fully enclosed capsules on the London Eye, but you won't find a number 13 though, because they decided to rename it number 33 for superstitious reasons. It takes about 30 minutes, offers passengers amazing panoramic views of the capital. At the top you can see about 25 miles around you. That's as far as Windsor Castle from here. Views are very nice at night time and sunset. And you can even get married up there. We have about 50 weddings a year. You get to the top, that's where you see the I do's, and then of course it's downhill from there. This is Westminster. As we come through the bridge, if you look to your right, the building with the red roof and green windows is County Hall. It used to be the offices for the Greater London Council and the Inner London Education Authority. That was up until 1986, when Margaret Thatcher, who was the Prime Minister at that time, decided she didn't like the Greater London Council. They were far too left-wing for her. So she abolished it, closed the building down, sold it on to developers. In there now we have the London Aquarium, where you can see fish from all over the world, and it's now owned by the same company that own the London Eye.
Filming me?
No,
But also in that building there's all kinds of other things. Right, there's the British Museum, which is all about films. There's a Dali exhibition, a couple of very nice hotels, some restaurants, there's a McDonald's there, Namco Arcade, TV studios, and somewhere where I'm sure most of you have been to today, the London Eye's ticket office. Looking ahead of us now, you can see a set of bridges that we're going to be going under very soon. Two of those are walkway bridges, and they kind of resemble the design of the London Eye. They were completed in 2002, which was the Queen's Golden Jubilee year, so they're called the Golden Jubilee Bridges. In between them, there's a railway bridge, the Hungerford Railway Bridge, which takes trains into Charing Cross Station, which is just over there on the left. The name Charing Cross comes from the last of the 12 crosses erected by Edward I to mark the funeral route in 1290 of his wife Eleanor of Castile. She died up in Nottinghamshire. The building above the station opened in 1992 and it was designed by Terry Farrell. And he said that the front of the building is supposed to look like a train coming through an archway. But to be honest, I'm not sure if I can see that. I think it looks more like a toaster. Or something like that. I'll leave it to your imagination. If you've seen the film Bridget Jones's Diary, all the office scenes were filmed in there. It's actually the offices for the accountancy firm, PricewaterhouseCoopers. It's called number 1 and Banknote Place. As we come through this bridge, if you look to your right, the whole area you can see there is what's known as the South Bank Centre. It's an area dedicated to the arts, and the first building here is the Royal Festival Hall. It's a concert hall built in 1951 to celebrate the Festival of Britain. It's a world-class concert hall, home to the London Philharmonic, But it was closed down for quite some time though while they did major refurbishments. One of the things they had to do was replace all of the seats because apparently the average size of a British bum has increased somewhat since the 1950s. So they've had to put much larger ones in now. Just next door we've got the Queen Elizabeth Hall and the Purcell Room where smaller concerts are held. Behind that is the Hayward's Art Gallery. If there are any fans of modern art, I would highly recommend going there today because they're celebrating their 40th anniversary of being open and it's just going to cost you 40 pence to go inside. And that's just for today. Normally it's £10. We've got all kinds of special exhibitions in there as well, celebrating their birthday. If you look underneath the last arch of this bridge, that's the National Film Theatre, known as the BFI. And this bridge is Waterloo Bridge, also known as the Ladies' Bridge, because it was built mainly by women back in World War II, because the men were well fighting. It's made out of a special kind of stone called Portland stone, which actually cleans itself whenever it rains, so it's going to be doing a lot of cleaning today, that's for sure. Underneath the bridge, you can see it's very dirty, because obviously the rain hasn't reached there. Looking to our right now, this building with the electronic advertising screen on it is the Royal National Theatre. This theatre may look a little bit like a multi-storey car park from here, but it's actually very nice on the inside. There's actually 3 different theatre spaces in there, the largest of which is the Olivier Theatre, named after Laurence Olivier, the famous actor. He was the first director of the National Theatre. You can see something in there for as little as £10, and it's always a really good performance in there. Very high standards of performances go into that theatre. Coming up now on the right, this very large tower block is London Studios for independent television programmes. Many programmes are filmed in there, including London Today and London Tonight news programmes. The Friday Night Project, or Sunday Night Project as it is at the moment. Also GMTV, Loose Women, The Graham Norton Show, Saturday Night Takeaway with Anton Deck. All kinds of programmes filmed in there. In fact, Blind Date was filmed in there at one time. And lots of things are filmed in the surrounding buildings as well. In this smaller white building with the blacked out windows, that's where they filmed This Morning with Fern and Phil. So if you give a wave over to right now, you get to be on national TV, because you do often see this programme passed on many programmes that are filmed in this area. Just next door to that white building, there's an area called Gabriel's Wharf, and they have a very nice crafts market in there now, and there's some great restaurants. It's a hot spot for celebrities as well. It's a really nice place to go and visit.
Gabriel's Wharf.
Coming up now on the right, the building with the tower on top of it is, of course, the Oxo Tower. You can see the letters OXO printed there. Those letters are in fact stained glass windows, and they illuminate whenever the lights inside are on. And they were put there as an ingenious way to get around the strict advertising restrictions in the 1930s. As you can see, they got away with it. But the Oxo company are no longer residing in this building, even though they still get free advertising. At the top of the building now there's a restaurant owned by Harvey Nichols. In the middle there are some apartments for key workers in the city. At the bottom there's some shops. Looking over to our left now, in the distance you can see a church with a large dome. That's of course St Paul's Cathedral. St Paul's Cathedral is almost 300 years old. It's going to be celebrating that birthday in 2010. It was built by Sir Christopher Wren to replace the old medieval cathedral which burnt down during the Great Fire of London in 1666. Many great events in the nation's history have taken place at St Paul's, including the marriage of Prince Charles to Lady Diana Spencer in 1981 and the funeral of Sir Winston Churchill in 1965. Many great people are buried there or have memorials inside, including Sir Christopher Wren himself. We're now coming up to Blackfriars Bridges. There's actually 2.5 bridges on this site. This first one is a road bridge and it's decorated with birds found on the River Thames. If you look at either side of us, there's some pink columns. At the top of the columns, carved into the stone, are some freshwater birds. There's some swans there, because that's how places can. come through the bridge, you see similar pink colour on this side. On top of those are carved some seabirds, because this side faces towards the sea, about 45 miles away from the Atlantic Sea. And here you can see the Harbour Bridge, which I mentioned earlier. I'll talk more about that bridge in the video. Looking ahead of us now, you can see a walkway bridge which we're going to be going under very soon. This is the infamous Millennium Bridge, the one that had to close down after its second day because of a wobble being found in it. So of course it got nicknamed the Wobbly Bridge. But it doesn't wobble anymore. It did take 18 months to fix the wobble though, and cost more to fix it than it did to build the bridge in the first place. The architect of the bridge, Lord Norman Foster, said it wasn't his design that caused its wobble. He said no, it's the way that people walk in London. If you look just before the bridge on the left, you can see a red brick building. And this is the new City of London School. This is school for boys. And this is where Daniel Radcliffe went, the star of the Harry Potter films. So it's not true that he went to Hogwarts. We may notice the centre of it is made out of glass, and that's so that we can see St Paul's Cathedral through the very building. There's a very strict law called St Paul's Grid Law. It prevents buildings from overshadowing St Paul's Cathedral and getting in the way of its views, in particular views from the river. And if you look where the bridge connects on the left, you get a full-length view of St Paul's. Very quick snapshot view there. But it's for this very same law why there are no tall buildings around St Paul's Cathedral. You can see it from miles around. Looking over to your right now, you can see a White's building with a thatched roof. That is a detailed reproduction of Shakespeare's Globe Theatre. It's built very close to the original site, made with the same tools and materials they would have used in the Shakespearean day. And even going to see a play there is just like it would have been back then as well, because you're encouraged to cheer and heckle at the actors, just like Shakespeare's audiences would have done. Or you can even throw mouldy tomatoes at them. It's a very lively experience with open air and standing room in the centre. So I'm afraid when it rains you do get wet.
That's cool.
And you're not allowed to take an umbrella either, because they want it to be a very authentic experience. And of course, umbrellas weren't invented in Shakespeare's day. It's in an area called Southwark, once notorious for its brothels, gambling, drinking, bear baiting, cockfighting, as well as its theatres. All the naughty things in life, the vices that had been banned over there on the left in the City of London. They had very strict rules over in the city. They were governed by the Puritans. So all those things could only go on in Southwark over there on the right. And this is Southwark Bridge we're passing under now. As we come through the bridge, if you look over to your right, just before the next bridge now, you can see a pub. That was there in Shakespeare's day. And now it has been renovated many times, of course, since Shakespeare's day. And it's changed its name as well. It was called the Bankside Tavern in his day. And Shakespeare's actors actually used to use it as a dressing room for the original Globe Theatre, which stood very close to it after this. Many famous drinkers have been in this pub, including Samuel Pepys, Charles Dickens, even Tom Cruise. He has a pint there at the end of the film Mission Impossible. But today this pub is called the Anchor. We're now passing under Cannon Street Railway Bridge. Possibly the ugliest bridge on the Thames. It's owned by National Rail. Looking over to our right now, in that gap between the buildings, you can see a pirate ship. This is in fact a replica of Sir Francis Drake's Golden Hind. In 1577, Sir Francis Drake became the first Englishman to travel around the world on this ship, returning 3 years later with £25 million worth of stolen treasure, mostly stolen from Spain and Portugal. So if there are any Spanish or Portuguese guests on board today, thank you, but you can't have it.
Your head's covering it though.
I'm afraid it was used to pay off the national debt. It got Francis Drake his knighthood, so he was very popular with Queen Elizabeth I. Not quite as popular with the Spanish though, they killed him in the end, unsurprisingly. In this next gap on the right, behind those trees, is a very old church. In fact, one of the oldest churches in London. It's Southwark Cathedral. Edmund Shakespeare, the brother of William, is buried in that cathedral. He died at a very young age of 24. And for any Americans on board today, John Harvard, who went on to found Harvard University, is that pastor and was a chaplain in that time. If you look to your left, coming into view now, in the gap between the buildings there is a very famous landmark for London. This is London's famous monument. It's unfortunately covered with scaffolding at the moment. It's the tall one with the golden top. And this monument was built to commemorate the rebuilding of the city after the Great Fire of London in 1666. It was designed by Sir Christopher Wren as an observation tower. So it was like the London Eye of its day, because you could walk to the top and watch London being rebuilt after the Great Fire. It's 62 metres high, which is the exact distance from the monument space to the baker's shop in Pudding Lane where the fire started. The fire did get rid of the plague, however, which had been spread by rats and fleas, and the previous year had claimed over 100,000 lives just in London. Also on our left, this sandy-coloured building with the arches at the front is the old Billingsgate Fish Market. It was the site of a fish market for almost 900 years. That was before the fish market moved to Canary Wharf in the 1980s. If you look on the roof, you can see the fish weather vane, reminding us of what the building was once used for. It's now used for corporate events. But about 400 tonnes of fish used to be sold there every day. On our right now, this large warship. There are three here, but the largest of the three, on the furthest right, is the HMS Belfast. It's an 11,500 ton cruiser. It used to pass in the Russian convoys, the D-Day landings, and it played a major role in the Second World War. It sunk a very important ship for the Germans called the Scharnhorst. Guns on the front of it can fire up to 12 miles, that's as far as Kew Gardens or Croydon from here. It was built at the same boat yards as the ill-fated Titanic. This ship is now a floating museum. It's permanently moored here, and you can actually go and visit. Great day out as well. Looking over to your left, you can see in the distance, not too far, but just coming up to it now, another very famous landmark. This is, of course, the Tower of London. The Tower of London is almost 1,000 years old. It dates right back to William the Conqueror. It's had many functions throughout the years. It's been an observatory, a royal mint, a royal zoo, but of course it's most famous as being the place where people who had fallen out of royal favour were imprisoned before being executed. And if you look on the riverbank now, you can see a bricked up entrance just in front of the tower. And above that entrance, you can see printed the words "Entry to the Traitor's Gate." And that's where those condemned people would enter the tower, having come on a similar journey to us from those black rod steps. And they'd be taken up into the tower to await their execution, usually by beheading. It's not quite so gruesome as that these days. We've now got in there the crown jewels and of course the beef eaters. And we're about to go under Tower Bridge now. Of course it gets its name from the Tower of London. But this bridge has an old sailor's legend on it. If you wave at someone as you're going under on a boat and they wave back at you, you get 5 years good luck. So let's see if we can get a wave on board today. Oh, yeah, a few mini waves. Well done. That's 5 years good luck for everyone on board. It's an old sailor's legend because this would be the last bridge that sailors would come to on their voyages out to sea. And their loved ones would stand on this bridge and wave them goodbye and wish them good luck. And sometimes they'd be gone for up to 5 years at a time.
My battery's almost
We
dead.
are now in the Old Port of London. In its heyday in the early 1900s, this was the busiest port in the world. And it continued to be the busiest in Europe right through until the beginning of the Second World War. about 30,000 people were employed in the port. 9,000 barges worked around here, and a further 50,000 ships a year would come from all over the British Empire and deliver their cargoes into these wharves you see around us. The wharves go about 8 miles down the river. It's what we call the Docklands. Sometimes those ships would be waiting so long to do their deliveries that it just took too long for them, so they needed to find a new way to deliver the cargoes around the city. So it would take them up to 3 months sometimes, just waiting in the queues. So by the 1960s, they had containerization and lorries. So it did mean that the ships no longer needed to come up here. But that also meant that a lot of people lost their livelihoods. All those 30,000 people, the barges disappeared, and that's why it's so quiet these days. And the ships, of course, no longer needed to come up here. And also the buildings, they became derelict. But in the 1980s, businessmen bought them and converted them into luxury apartments. One of those businessmen was Terence Conran. He actually bought 17 of these old wharves and converted them. One of the ones he bought is just in front of us, slightly to the right at the moment. This is Butler's Wharf. Now he paid in total £4 million for all 17 of the wharves he bought. But if you wanted to buy just a one-bedroom apartment in Butler's Wharf today, you'd be paying about £1.5 million. There's also a very nice restaurant in there called Le Pont de la Tour, which means Tower Bridge in French. And now that we've turned, we've got a fantastic view from here of Tower Bridge. It's a great photo opportunity for those of you with cameras. This is of course the famous bridge that can be raised to let tall ships go underneath. In its heyday it was raised several times a day. Now it's very rare to see it happening. It just happens a few times a week. It takes a minute and a half for the bridge to go up. The same for to go back down again. High above you can see the pedestrian walkway which was used whenever the bridge was raised for long periods of time. It's now used for an exhibition that displays about the bridge's history. And one of the most spectacular things in that exhibition is about a double-decker bus that was actually on the bridge while it was being raised.